All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to my first CodeClinic. Add amazing reporting and data visualization features to a .NET app. My name is Alec Gall, and I'm the product manager for ActiveReports.net. I've made a lot of videos, but I've never done a live event before, so bear with me as I fumble around here. By the way, stick around until the end for a chance to win a free license for ActiveReports. So first, let's paint a picture of some modern problems that report users face these days. Business users need quick, high-level insights to guide decision making, but at the same time, they also require the ability to drill into details for deeper analysis. Traditional reports often force a sort of trade-off between summary and detail, and this can create some inefficiency and frustration for modern workflows. So naturally, modern problems require modern solutions, and a great solution is dashboard reports. So dashboard reports provide instant big picture insights at a glance, but they also have interactive elements that allow users to explore the underlying data. Things like drill-through reports deliver detailed views without overwhelming the dashboard. So that's things like clicking on a point in a chart and taking you to a detailed view of that point. So this combines efficiency, flexibility, and clarity for modern reporting. So I'm going to run you through using active reports to solve this kind of problem by building a functional and interactive dashboard report with features like charts, scrollable containers, drill through, and drill down. All right, so let's hop into the Active Reports Designer. Alrighty, so here we are in the Active Reports Desktop Designer. The first thing is, of course, going to be adding some data. So as you can see over here in my data sources, I've already got some data sets set up. These are coming from the Northwind sample database that I'm sure many of you have seen before. But just to show you how you would normally add these databases, you just open the data source here. You can choose a data provider from one of the defaults provided, or you can also add custom providers if you need. In this case, I'm using the SQL client provider, and then you just fill out the details here or paste in your connection string. And as you can see here, I'm just connected to a local instance of a SQL server. Then from there, where you actually add your queries and everything, is with the data sets. So in my case, let's just open my orders over time one here. You can use the query editor or query designer rather here. You can manually type out your SQL, or you can actually use this database view over here to drag fields over and create your SQL query without actually doing any code. But like I said, I've got all mine ready to go already in the interest of time, so we'll just continue like this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just create a title for my dashboard. So I'm just going to grab a text box. Let's make that pretty large and roughly centered. Okay, then I'm just going to name it Sales and Orders Dashboard. And let's crank that font way up to something like 28 maybe. Semi-bold. Yeah, that looks about right. And then let's just change our text alignment to center. And we're about good to go for that. Okay, then next thing I'm going to do is create what you might call like a card in a dashboard. So to emulate that, I'm going to grab my container control here. And let's make it about about a quarter-ish of the width here. And let's just give that a white background to differentiate it from my slightly off-white report background. And I'll give this a rounding radius as well to make it look a little more modern. Okay, then from there, I'm just going to grab another text box. Make this a little bigger. And this is going to be our total orders card. So title that total orders. And again, we're going to adjust the font. So let's call that 18 points. And let's center that as well. Okay. Then I'm just going to copy paste this to get another text box real quick. And this is where we're going to actually use some data for the first time. There's a handful of different ways you can get your data into a text box. In this case, I'm just going to click on this little hamburger icon. And this will bring up all my data sets. And I'm going to use my total orders one here. And I'm just going to grab total orders. And it is correctly assuming that I want the sum of that. So I can leave that as is. And then let's, actually, never mind. I don't need to format that because it's just an integer. So go ahead and just preview this, make sure everything looks correct. All right, there we go. We have our little card. All right, let's actually just increase this font a little bit and make it bold. And check again. Okay, that looks about what I wanted. All right, then we're going to make a few more of those cards. So I'm just going to copy and paste this one. Line it up with the previous one. This next one's going to be our total revenue. And then again, I can just select my total revenue here. And in this case, this is a decimal value and it's going to be a currency. So if I preview this, you're going to see it's going to look a bit obnoxious. So I'm going to add some formatting to that. There's a lot of different default formats you can choose from here. In this case, I'm just going to grab the currency and I'm going to set it to 0 decimal places, since I don't think we're worried about a couple of cents when we're looking at $1 million something value. And if I preview that, you can see it's formatted to the currency now, but my text box isn't quite big enough, so it's wrapping. So let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, that looks good. Now let's go ahead and copy paste this one again. This one, we're going to do our top customer. And again, I have a data set just for that. So I'm going to grab company name. And in this case, this query is already sorting the company names by which one has the highest revenue and only returning the highest one. It assumes I want sum, but I actually don't want that this time. So I'm going to change that to first. So it just gives me the first entry. And then let's do basically the exact same thing for the fourth one. It's going to be our best selling product. And let's just grab that. Again, let's do first instead of sum. Now if we preview that, we can see those are all working. In this case, for our last one, I'm going to move those up a little bit since this is product name has a long name. So let's just, oops, that's way too far. Move this box up a bit, and let's move this one up a bit. And I guess let's reduce the font size too, since this is a very long name. Okay. And I'm not going to worry about nitpicking too much since just trying to get the point across, not make something perfect. Okay, so we've got our little cards. Next, let's go ahead and create a chart. So I'm going to drag my first chart over here. This is going to open up the chart wizard. You can skip and create here instead of using the wizard if you prefer, but this wizard helps you get started with a basic chart pretty quick, to kind of skip some of the setup process. And I'm just going to go ahead and use the wizard in this case. So first we want to select our query. In this case, orders over time is already the correct one, so I'm going to keep it on that. I'm going to select my line chart. And then for the data values, let's add one. And that's going to be our order count. I don't need an aggregate since it's already being aggregated in my SQL query. And let's just change the caption to orders and click next. Then for categories, I'm going to group these by the month. And let's do ascending so that it's in chronological order. Then there's a whole bunch of themes you can pick from by default, and then these themes all have lots of different colors as well. In this case, I'm just going to keep the default one, and you can also create and add your own themes or remove certain ones as well. All right, so we've got our functional chart already technically. Let's make it a little bigger. About there is good, I guess. And let's just preview this, see what it looks like so far. Okay, so got a functional chart, but I don't love the styling. And as you can see, especially with our bottom label here, I'm using a date time for my months, and bringing that entire value in looks a bit obnoxious on the label. So let's clean that up. So what I'm going to do is add a format to the label here. So over here, after selecting my axis, you can see the format property. I'm going to change that to custom. There are a bunch of default date format options, by the way, but I want to do something very particular. So I'm just going to do custom and open my expression editor. And so the formatting, number formatting and date formatting uses basically the same kind of syntax as if you were to do this in like a .NET project. So in this case, when I put MMM here in all caps, that's going to give me the first 3 letters of the name of the month. And then I've got quotes with an apostrophe in the middle just to basically break out a string, and my string is just an apostrophe. And then lowercase yy for the last 2 digits of the year. So it's going to say like Jan 86, for example. Okay, now if I preview that, we should see that. So now you can see Jan 97, March 97, etc. Okay, so from there, I just want to clean this up a bit more. So let's add some more styling. So for my label style here on that same axis, I'm going to add a small bit of top padding, let's say maybe 4 points. And then I'm also going to change the major grid style. Let's make that this light gray. And let's do the same thing for the line style. And then I'm actually just going to remove this title down here because it's not really necessary. I think it's implied fine by the overall title. And then for our y-axis, we're going to do basically the same thing. Let's just change this line to light gray, and let's change our major grid to light gray. And let's give our labels a small bit of, this time, 4-point right padding. And again, I think we can just go ahead and hide that title because it's implied by the overall title. All right. Now, if I preview, that looks a bit cleaner, a bit more modern. Let's also go ahead and select the whole chart. Let's give it a white background so that it sticks out from that gray background as well, like our cards up here. Check that. Okay. Then from there, I don't love how this chart is, the data points go all the way to the top. So I'm going to configure some limits for the scaling. So in this case, I'm going to select my axis. And then for the maximum value here, let's use an expression actually. So what this expression is doing is taking the max value of my order count field and adding 20 to it. So basically the chart will always scale to 20 higher than the most value so that it can't end up being up at the top like that. So I preview that, now that looks a lot better. Okay, so let's start adding a little bit of interactivity here. All right, so I'm going to select my orders from the chart data here. And for the tooltip, the value I can select is my order count. And that's simply going to add a tooltip that shows the order count when I hover over the data point. So you can see that there. Nice and simple. Then from there, let's go ahead and add an overlay. So selecting my plot again. And then under chart overlays here, I'll open this collection, and then I'll add one. And whoops, keep that on. I think it was average. Okay, so under type here, there's a whole bunch of different overlays you can pick from. In this case, I'm going to just do a linear trend line, which will just, of course, show a linear trend line of that data. So if I preview that, we've got our trend line just like that. All right, then from here, let's try some drill through. So I'm going to select my orders again, and then we've got this action property under behavior here. Let's open that collection up. And for action type, I'm going to pick jump to report. And then I've got this other report called dashboard demo DT for drill through. I'm going to select that one. And then this is basically when somebody clicks on one of the chart points, it'll take them to that value in dashboard demo DT. So we can also pass parameters. In this case, we're going to want to do that so that it passes the right month. So I believe my parameter is selected month in that report. And that value is just going to be order month from our existing table here. And I can click OK. And that is actually all you got to do. So let's preview that again. If I click on one of these data points, so this should, for example, take me to March of '98. Right, so this is opening up my other report. And then in this report, I actually have a few other interactivity features in here that I'll show you how to implement later. But this is drill down, for example, where you can expand and collapse groups in your data table to show more details. And then there's also interactive sorting here, so you can sort on each column in the table. But as you can see, of course, this is filtered to March of '98 since that's what we clicked on. All right, now back to our dashboard. So let's go ahead and add another chart here. And this time I'm going to go with a column And for the query, let's make this revenue by category. Add again, total revenue. Again, don't need an aggregate since I have already done that in my SQL. And for this, let's just change the caption to revenue. And for categories, it was correct in assuming category name, and I don't need to add any sorting, so I'll just leave that. Okay, and again, I'm just going to leave it on the default theme. And let's expand this a little bit. That looks about right. Okay, so again, it's going to be a functional chart from the beginning, but I want to clean it up a bit. So let's just start by doing some of the things I already did on the previous one. Let's get rid of those titles. Let's add perhaps a little bit of padding for the labels here. Or actually, you know what? I'm not going to end up using my x-axis labels anyway, so I won't worry about those. But let's go ahead and edit the line style. So let's do light gray and make the grid style light gray as well. And then we can leave the labels for now, but I'm going to be hiding them later. Let's change this to light gray as well. And same for our line style. And let's give it that little bit of padding on the right side. And let's just hide that revenue. Okay, let's preview that, make sure everything looks as expected. Yes, it does. Okay, so let's go ahead and hide this label now and just change show labels to false. And then instead of those labels, I'm going to use a chart legend. So I'm going to select my color legend here. And then under legend mode, I'm going to change that to custom legend. And let's set that to category name. So now this is going to give each bar a different color for the name of the category, and then it'll give me my legend over there. So let's just preview that. So here we go. We have all of our categories in different colors with the legend now. Then let's go ahead and change the formatting on this number since it takes up a lot of space having those really not long numbers there. So I'm just going to select that axis again, go to labels and format. And I'm going to do a custom one again, just because I like to be complicated, I guess. So I'm going to paste in this expression. Basically, like I mentioned before, it uses the same kind of formatting syntax as .NET. So I'm kind of combining that with an expression. So in this case, this toString is part of our expression syntax, and it's giving me the number with 0 decimal places, and then it's adding just the letter K afterwards. So now instead of like 250,000, it'll say 250K to save space. So if I preview that, you can see that is working now. Then from here, so we can get more specific data values, let's do a tooltip kind of like we did for the other one. So I'm going to select my data again and go to tooltip. And then I'm going to, actually, I guess I'm just going to use the field name again. So just value, then category name. Oops, sorry, not category name, total revenue. And actually, instead of that, let's go ahead and make an expression again. So in this case, what I'm trying to do is I want it, when I hover over my bar, to say the name of the category, then a hyphen, and then the exact value. So That's all this is doing in this expression here. It's grabbing my category name and a hyphen and the formatted currency of the total revenue. So press OK. Now, if I hover over this, you can see it says dairy products and then gives the exact number and so on. All right, so let's go ahead and add one more chart. And in this case, I'm going to do a bar chart. And whoops, I didn't change the query. So let's change that to top 10 customers by revenue and then choose bar chart. In this case, let's see, we want revenue. And again, we don't need the aggregate since I'm doing that in my SQL already. And we'll group that by company name, and we can go ahead. And for this one, let's go ahead and select a specific color. I like this violet color, so let's go with that. And just line these up. I'm actually going to do something a little asymmetrical here. Actually, I think I should make these a little bit less tall because this one's a bit large. Okay. So again, let's just preview this. We're going to end up doing a lot of similar stuff to this previous chart. For this one, as you can see, these titles are quite long, so we needed the space here. Then we're going to clean up these labels and the lines and everything. So let's just run through that quickly. Also realize I didn't add a white background to this one, so just doing that really quick before I do it to this one. All right, now let's just run through these styling changes very quickly, changing my grid to light gray, changing my axis to light gray, changing the label style, adding a tiny bit of padding as well. Okay, then doing basically the same thing with the y-axis. Change my major grid style. Change my line style. And add a little bit of padding. Okay, then let's also go ahead and just increase the label font size a tiny bit for these since they're large names. All right, preview that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And I'm just going to change this title to just top customers, I think. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and do some tooltips and labels again. So let's select my chart data here. Value, we're just going to take the revenue, and we'll format that as a currency with 0 decimal places. And then for the label, we can do basically the same thing that we did for our axis labels up here. So I'm going to change my data label, change the value, paste in that same expression. We're just doing the, like 100K, 150K sort of formatting. And then for the format, I'm going to make that, oops, sorry, that was supposed to, that expression was supposed to go in the formatting. The value is going to be my, my revenue. So let's take that. And all we need here is not the first, we just want the full thing. Fields revenue.value looks right. Okay, and then let's actually just add that same formatting to our x-axis here. Okay, so preview that, and that's all looking good. If I hover over this, I can get my exact number. Okay, then let's go ahead and add a table in a container. So I'm going to grab my container control again, and let's expand that to about there. I can shrink this, by the way. Okay, then from here, let's change our overflow property to scroll. So that'll mean if I have a table in here that expands past the bottom of this container, it'll allow the user to scroll up and down to browse the full data. So then from here, I'm going to go ahead and grab my table. And this is going to open the table wizard. In this case, I'm going to be a bit particular about how I want my table set up, so I'm not going to use the wizard. I'm just going to add a blank table. And let's just make sure that's all aligned with my container here. Drag this across. And let's go ahead and give that container the white background as well. And I'm just going to delete my footer here because I don't intend to use it. Okay, so from here, let's add some data to our table. So I'm going to grab, let's see, we want our orders by location data set. I'm going to grab my city, and I'm going to add my order count and my revenue. Okay, then let's just format this up a little bit. Let's right align all of these cells. And then specifically for my revenue, let's make that a currency. Okay, and let's just preview that, make sure everything looks okay. All right, there we go. We've got our table inside the dashboard. Then from here, let's give our header just a little bit of formatting to differentiate it. So let's take the background color. Let's just make that, let's say Gainsboro here. Actually, maybe white smoke. Preview that, make sure that looks okay. Yes, it does. But I think I actually do want to go with Gainsboro, so it's a little darker than the background. Okay, then from there, I'm going to add a group. So let's right click on our row here and insert group. And then the most important property here is going to be our group expression. So that's what it's going to actually group the data by. So in this case, I want to group it by the country. So I'm just going to select my country value, and that's really all I need to select here. I'm not worried about sorting it or filtering it or anything like that. So I'm just going to press OK. And then for our group header here, let's add the country. And then let's also do the sum of our order count. It's going to automatically assume that I wanted an aggregate there since this is a group header. And let's do the same for revenue. And let's just make sure we also right align these like we did our other fields. And let's also turn this into a currency with 0 decimal places. And again, I don't really need my footer, so I'm going to delete this row or group footer as well. And then if I preview this, you can see it is grouping, but it's hard to tell where the group starts since I didn't do any formatting. So you can see Germany, and then these are cities in Germany. But let's clean that up a little bit. So in this case, I think I'm just going to add a little bit of padding to my city to make it look indented to differentiate it. So I'll add a little bit of left padding here. Let's call it 20 points perhaps. Let's see how that looks. Okay, there you go. Now you can clearly see that those cities are grouped under the Germany region and Austria region here. And then you can see that the group header is doing these aggregates of just the group itself, by the way. Then from here, let's turn this into not just groups, but drill down kind of like our other table that we have here. So let's go back. First, we're going to want to make note of the name of this text box because that's where we're going to want the expand and collapse icon to be. So you can see this is text box 16. You can, of course, name it something memorable if you want, but in this case, I'll just remember that that's text box 16. And then I'm going to go back and select this row, my detail row, and I'm going to go to my visibility properties here, and I'm going to change that to true so that it is hidden by default. And then toggle item here will toggle the hidden property. So toggle item is asking for the name, so that's why we made note of that. So I'm going to give that text box 16 and press enter. So now that's going to add that collapse and expand icon to text box 16, and it's going to link the action to this row. So now if I preview that again, I can click those icons to expand and collapse. And by the way, earlier I did mention this is in a scrollable container, but for this particular demonstration, I'm actually using the desktop designer, and as you can see here, there are certain limitations with scrollable containers in the desktop version, since for the most part dashboards are meant for being viewed in the web. So if this were the web designer, you could see that you can scroll up and down on this table to see the full details. Let's just close that. Okay. Then just to clean that up slightly, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of extra formatting to this cell. So let's just kind of turn this into an expression. I'm just going to basically add a space in here to separate the icon from the actual content of the field a little bit. And then I'm just going to add a tiny bit of padding while I'm at it as well. That's going to be left padding. Let's make it 4, I think. Now, if I preview that, it looks a little bit cleaner here. Now that there's some space. All right, so there we have it. We built a clean dashboard report layout that calls out and highlights some important data insights at a glance, like in these cards, and then through these charts. Also provides some drill down with our table and drill through, of course, into our other report here. If you're interested in giving ActiveReports.net a try, I'm going to share some resources with you to help you get started. So hop back to my slides here for a second. So you can try ActiveReports.net for free by downloading from developer.meshius.com/ActiveReports.net or downloading the NuGet packages directly through Visual Studio. We've got lots of demos and documentation available if you check out our Getting Started page. We also have lots of sample projects available on the GitHub repo. And of course, feel free to contact support or request a demo or even message me directly if you'd like to see some more. And that brings us to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in, and I'll address as many as I can. There should be a bit of a delay from me speaking to actually showing up on the stream, so I'll give it a little bit of time to see if anyone submits anything. So just take a drink here and wait a minute. We add custom data sets from C#. Yes, you can. Sorry, you can use the object data provider, and with the object data provider, you're basically you can you can basically add your own provider that is sourcing data from, I mean, it can be from a database or it can be something that was already just an object. You can put it into something like a list, and then you can connect that object provider to active reports. Um, and then you can manually set data sets. You can set like a query for, if, for example, you were using just the SQL provider already, not the custom object provider, and you just want to set the data set itself, you can programmatically change the data set query like that as well. Is section report part of the active reports version 19 yet? Yes, so section reports are, well, they have always been part of V19. They haven't been removed or anything. I'm guessing what you probably mean though is, can you use the section report, code-based section report designer in Visual Studio, in a .NET Core / .NET 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 project? The answer to that is no. But there is a workaround to basically open the framework version of the code-based section report designer in a .NET Core project. You don't have to actually deploy the framework part of the project. It's just there to assist in being the designer interface, basically. Um, However, for V20 coming up this upcoming winter, we finally did make some headway working with Microsoft to make it possible in uh, the upcoming version of Visual Studio to actually port that designer to .NET Core. Um, it basically wasn't possible at all in the previous versions, so it's seeming like we're actually going to finally be able to put that in V20 coming up here, so stay tuned for that. How do I handle security, like limiting which data certain users can see? So Active Reports is essentially just the designer and viewer components itself, and the reporting engine, of course. So Active Reports doesn't necessarily handle security or authentication or anything like that itself, but it does provide, everything you need in order to implement those things. So there's lots of different ways you could do it, but generally, outside of active reports, you'll want to, identify the user, and then based on whatever your logic is, programmatically set the data source to the one that they're meant to have access to. Or if, for example, different users need to have access to different pieces of the same database, you can do something like pass in a hidden parameter for their ID or role, and then use that parameter in your dataset query to make sure that it only queries, the pieces of the database that they're supposed to see. How did you bring down the 30,000 to just 30 in the revenue chart? I understand how you add the K. So that was with the, let me see if I can refresh myself with exactly what I did in my expression. So basically, the expression I did is just taking the, I used the just the number symbol as the format, which grabs basically just the part of the number that comes before the comma, I believe, and then I just added the K after that, and then the 0 in the expression was also um, limiting the what's it called, the decimal places of the number. I'll actually, let's see, can I pasted the, here, this is the expression that I use, just toString, and then just a number or hashtag or whatever you want to call it, and then 0 for 0 decimal places, and then and k. Can I schedule reports with active reports? Yes. So it's another case similar to the security thing where it's technically outside the scope of the component itself, but it's definitely something you can do, and it's easy to do. Um, Everything can be done through code with active reports. So basically, you just need to write a simple application to like load and render a report to the desired export format. And then you link that up with a scheduling application that sends the call to active reports to run the report at the scheduled time. So, that could be something that you write yourself, or that could be some pre-existing third-party application. We actually have a blog post on our site that I wrote about a year ago, I think last November, that shows an example of doing that using Windows Task Scheduler. Yeah, so basically, okay, so he says that part I understand. I just don't get the part where it went from 30,000 to 30 and cut off thousands. In other words, how did the number become 30 instead of 30,000? That's just how the, what do you call that? It's the like .NET number formatting syntax. The just the number symbol, just it just does that by default. That's like what it symbolizes. The number symbol is just taking the, I'm not sure what the word is for the in this case it's the thousands place, but I think if the number was over a million, it would have taken, like if it was, for example, 1,500,000, I think it would just return one. But it's just giving you the, the value before the comma, if that makes sense. Okay, can you use the same reports in the desktop and web versions of the designers and viewers? Yes, you can. They're fully cross-compatible. You can design in the desktop version and open it in the web version and vice versa. In some cases, there's certain generally pretty small features that only work in one or the other, but a vast majority of things are supported in both. And generally, if something's not supported in one and it is in the other, it's because it's a feature you generally wouldn't use, in desktop versus web, or the other way around. Is there any way to use a data source that isn't already supported by active reports, such as MongoDB? Yes, so this kind of comes back to that first question from before. Basically, you can add your own custom data providers, and you can also use the object data provider. So in that case, you could, in some C# code, you can take the data from your MongoDB and put it into something like a a .NET object like a list, and then you would connect that list as an object data source. So it's kind of like a middleman between your database and active reports, and then active reports can work directly with that. Give it just a few seconds, just make sure no more come in. Alrighty. Well, it looks like we got through all the questions. So since you made it to the end, now's your chance to enter for free Active Reports license. So there should be a QR code at the bottom of your screen now. Just go ahead and follow that link from the QR code and enter your email, and you'll have a chance to win the license. You'll receive an email later to let you know if you've won the giveaway or not. And also don't forget to sign up for our next Code Clinic as well. My colleague Greg Lutz, the product manager for Component One Studio, he'll be hosting everything you can do with FlexGrid using Component One on October 15th. Again, my name is Alec Gall, and I'm the product manager for ActiveReports.net. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you again on October 15th. See ya.